Nah, mulailah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Respectfully, I would like to greet Mr. Dr. Abdul Shahid MPD as the lecturer of English Indonesian Translation course and my dear friends participant of today's discussion. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Maisara and I will be moderator who guides this discussion today. Alhamdulillah, today we can conduct our English Indonesian translation discussion online. Hopefully, this discussion will run smoothly from the beginning until the end. So, the agenda of today's discussion is as follows. First, opening. Second, material presentation by Group 1. Question and answer session and discussion. And last is closing. Before we begin the main session, let us open this meeting by reciting basmalah together. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
So next, we will move to the presentation session. To group 1, please present your book review. The time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Today, we're going to presentation review the book translation translation bahasan teori dan penuntun praktis penerjemahan by karya Jushridin Suryawinata dan Sugeng Haryanto. So, let's the next session, please. Okay. Today, I'm going to present chapter 1 and 2 of the book. In chapter 1, we will talk about the basic concept of translation and the role of the translator. Then in chapter 2, we will move to something more practical, which is translation methods and procedure. So basically, chapter 1 answer the question, what is translation? And chapter 2 answer the question, how do we actually translate? In the chapter, the author mainly talks about four important things. First, definition of translation, the translation process, the requirement of good translation, and the resources that translator can use. So, in my presentation, I will explain these points in a simple and easy way to understand, I hope. First of all, the book begins by explaining why understanding translation theory is important. The author emphasizes that translation is not just about changing words from one language into another language. It is actually a complex process that involves meaning, context, and communication. This is important because many people think translation is simply replacing words using a dictionary, but in reality, good translation requires deep understanding. So, the purpose of this chapter is to help readers understand the true nature of translation. Next, the chapter discuss several definitions of translation from experts. One of the most famous definition comes from Catford in 1969. He defines translation as the replacement of textual material in one language by equivalent textual material in another language. In simple words, translation means replacing text in the source language with equivalent text in the target language. But the other points out something interesting here. According to Catford's definition, the focus in textual material, not directly on meaning, And this can be a bit problematic. Why? Because in translation, meaning is actually the most important thing. The author explained the equivalence can be viewed from different aspects such as equivalence of meaning, equivalence of length, equivalence of style, and or even equivalence of form.
Technical text.
However,
All text
in real
that
translation
are
practice,
information
meaning
and knowledge
should be the
in
main
actually
priority.
scientific manners.
So,
Primary
the
focus
key
on this type of
takeaway
text
here is good translation is not word for word replacement. It is meaning based transfer between language. Moving on, the chapter explains the true nature of translation. The author emphasized that translation is essentially a process of transferring messages from the source language to the target language. This means the translator must understand the original message clearly and reproduce the same message naturally in the target language. The goal is not to copy the form but to deliver the same meaning. This is why sometimes a literal translation sounds stranger or unnatural. For example, if we translate word by word, the grammar might be correct, but the message might sound awkward to native speakers. So the translator must balance between accuracy, clarity, and naturalness. Now, let's talk about the translation process. According to the chapter, translation is not a one-step activity. It involves several mental stages. Generally, the process includes three main steps. Step 1, analysis. In this stage, the translator reads and analyzes the source text. The translator must understand the meaning, the context, the grammar, and the intention of the writer. This step is very important. If the translator misunderstands the source text, the final translation will also be wrong. So, before translating, the translator must fully comprehend the original text. Step 2, transfer. After understanding the message, the translator transfer the meaning from the source language into the target language in their mind. This step happens mentally. Here, the translator focuses on finding equivalent meaning, adjusting cultural elements, and choosing appropriate expression. This is where translation skill really matter. Step 3, restructuring. Finally, the translator rewrite the message in the target language. The goal is to produce a translation that is natural, clear, and acceptable to target readers. At this stage, the translator checks grammar, style, and readability. So, overall translation is a multi-step cognitive process, not instant word replacement. Next, the chapter discusses what makes a good translation. According to the author, a good translation must fulfill several criteria. First, the translation must accurately convey the original meaning. There should be no distortion, addition, or loss of important information. Accuracy is the most fundamental requirement. Second, the translation must be clear and easy to understand. Even if the translation is accurate, it fails if readers cannot understand it. So, translator must use a natural and readable language. Third, the translation must sound natural in the target language. It should not feel like a translation. Instead, it should read as if it were originally written in the target language. This is actually one of the big challenges in translation. The chapter also explains what skills a translation should have. A professional translator should possess first, good mastery of the source language, good mastery of the target language, knowledge of the subject matter, cultural understanding, and strong writing skills. The author stressed that bilingual ability alone is not enough. Why? Because translation also requires analytical thinking, sensitivity to meaning, and awareness of context. So, being fluent in two languages does not automatically make someone a good translator. In the final part of the chapter, the author mentions several resources that translators can use to improve their work. These include dictionaries, glossaries, reference books, parallel text, and subject-specific materials. However, the author reminds us that tools are only helpers. The most important factor is still the translator's competence and judgment. In other words, tools support the translator, but the translator makes the decision. To conclude my presentation, this chapter provides a fundamental understanding of translation. The main points we can learn are translation is the transfer of meaning, not just word. It involves a complex three-stage process. Good translation must be accurate, clear, and natural. And a competent translator needs more than just bilingual ability. Overall, this chapter serves as a strong theoretical foundation for anyone who wants to study translation more deeply. Next slide, please. Alright everyone, now I will continue the next part of the book. In this section, the author discusses something more practical, which is about translation method and translation procedures. If in chapter 1 we talk about what translation is, now in this chapter we will talk about how translation is actually done. So this part is more technical and very important for translators. First, the book explains about translation methods. Translation method refers to the general approach used to translate a whole text. The author divides translation method into several types. Let's discuss them one by one. First, word-for-word translation. This method translates each word directly from the source language to the target language. The word order is usually kept the same. This method is very literal and often sounds unnatural. For example, she is beautiful. If translated word for word into Indonesian incorrectly, it might sound awkward in structure. This method is usually only useful in the early stage of translation analysis, not for the final product. The second, literal translation. Literal translation is slightly more flexible than a word-for-word translation. Here, the grammatical structure is adjusted to fit the target language, but the meaning is still translated directly. It sounds more natural than word-for-word translation, but sometimes still feels stiff This method is often used when the structure between the two languages is similar. Third, faithful translation. A faithful translation tries to reproduce the exact contextual meaning of the original text. The translators keep the original meaning even if the result sounds slightly unnatural. The purpose here is on staying loyal to the core text. This method is often used in academic or religious texts where accuracy is extremely important. Fourth, semantic translation. Semantic translation is similar to faithful translation, but more flexible. It considers aesthetic value and naturalness, so it tries to balance between meaning accuracy and readability. This method is often used in literary works. Fifth, communicative translation. Communicative translation focuses on delivering the message clearly and naturally to the target readers. The main goal is reader understanding. So, sometimes the translator might slightly modify expression to make them clearer. This method is very common in modern translation practice. Now let's move to translation procedures. If translation method apply to the whole text, translation procedure are techniques used for specific word or parts. The author mentions several procedures. First, borrowing. Borrowing means taking a word directly from the source language without translating it. For example, internet and software. These words are borrowed into many languages. Borrowing is often used when there is no equivalent word in the target language. The second, calcu. Calcu is a literal translation of a parse. For example, skyscraper translated into the another language as sky and scraper in literal form. This method creates a new expression in the target language. Third, transposition. Transposition means changing the grammatical category. For example, changing a noun into a verb. This is very common when the grammar structure of the two languages is different. Fourth, modulation. Modulation means changing the perspective or point of view. For example, instead of translating, "It is not difficult," you translate it as "It is easy." The meaning is the same, but the structure changes. Fifth, adaptation. Adaptation is used when cultural elements do not exist in the target language. For example, cultural events or food names may need to be replaced with equivalent concepts in the target culture. So this method is common in translating movies, advertisements, or literature. The book also discusses equivalence. Equivalence means finding the closest natural equivalent in meaning and style. The translator must consider linguistic equivalence, cultural equivalence, stylistic equivalence, and stylistic equivalence. Equivalence is not about sameness of word, but sameness of meaning and effect. This is very important because languages are different systems. The author also explained that translation is not always easy. There are several common problems. Vocabulary difference, some words do not have equivalence, cultural difference, some concepts only exist in one culture, idioms and expression. Idioms cannot be translated literally. For example, prick a line. If translated literally, it will confuse readers. So translator must understand context deeply. So, from this chapter, we can conclude that translation method determine the overall approach. Translation producers are specific techniques used from word or phrases. Equivalence is the main goal, and translation requires cultural and linguistic sensitivity. This chapter helps us understand that translation is not mechanical. It requires analysis, creativity, and decision making. Then, the next part will be continued by my friend. Thank you.
Thank you. Building the next expression to translation definition and method in chapter 1 and chapter 2. I will now continue with chapter 3 and chapter 4. If the previous chapter focus on the translation is and how it can be done, this chapter focus on the practice and strategies the great translation process. Chapter 3 discuss and fundamental practice on the great translation in making definition and translation, in not merely refreshing words from the source language into the target language. It is the transfer to many well-maintained theory and communicative effectiveness. 1K practical is the balance between the source that takes the target readings. A translator must defeat whether to perceive the original structure and style, the process, reliability, and natural the target audience. 3 are two main orientations. First, visualize the source text with the focus and preserving the organizational wording and form. Second, faithfulness to the target readings with the emphasis, creativity, and natural expression. However, this chapter highlights the many improved over form, structure, changes are appreciable as long the message remains natural. Natural is also essential. A good translating should not sound like the translation text, but should follow the grammatical and cultural norms of the target language. In short, the goal of the translation practices in the active both accuracy and reliability. Okay, next the slide. Please next. Okay, well, the chapter 3 explains the principle. Next, the chapter 4 focus on the now those principles are applied in practice. The first step in structural strategies we include the addition, omission, and transposition modulation. These strategies help adjust grammatical difference between languages. The second step also semantic strategies such as borrow, synonym, expression, and reduction. These strategies are used their record efficiency is difficult to accept. The third type is parametric strategies. This involves cultural and control adjustment in ensure that the message remains appropriate and effective for the target readings. Overall, chapter 4 solved the translation in the sequence makes a process. A translator must carefully choose appropriate strategies while still following the principles discussed in the chapter 3. So that is all for the chapter 3 and chapter 4. The next chapter will be continued by my team. Thank you. Please jangan. Kayak apa sih cara memutenya?
Alright, so I'll continue with chapter 5, 6, and 7. Okay, in this part, the book starts getting more technical. Earlier chapters discuss principles and strategies, but in these chapters, we move into the real problems translators face, especially in grammatical issues, lexical gaps, and different layers of meaning. So, basically, this section answers a very important question. Why can't we just translate word by word? And the short answer is because languages don't work the same way. Every language has its own structure, its own way of organizing reality, and its own cultural background. So when we translate, we are not moving words, but we are moving meaning across different systems. That's why these 3 chapters are very important because they show us where translation problems actually happen, and at the level of grammar, vocabulary, and meaning. So, in chapter 5, the focus is grammatical equivalence, and honestly, this is one of the biggest challenges in translation. Different languages have different grammatical systems. For example, English uses articles like and the. Indonesian doesn't really use articles in the same way. So English also has clear tense markers. But Indonesian expresses time differently. Word order can also vary. So when we translate, we often cannot keep the same structure. The book gives an example. So the word is the horse is grazing in the yard. In Indonesian, it becomes kudanya sedang merumput di halaman. Now, if we look closely, the article the is not translated literally. Instead, the meaning of specificity is expressed differently. And this shows that grammar is not always transferable. The book explains that translators deal with grammatical differences using 3 main techniques. The first is addition, because sometimes we need to add something to make the sentence clear in the target language. Second, omission. Sometimes we remove something because it sounds unnatural if translated directly. And third, transposition, which means we change the structure. So the main idea that grammatical equivalence is flexible. It's not about copying the structure, but it's adjusting the structure while keeping the meaning. Next, we move to chapter 6. Okay, in chapter 6, we talk a lot about words, because words are the basic units translators work with. But the problem is, one word in one language doesn't always equal one word in another language. So the book gives a very interesting example. In this book, we have the word rice, but in Indonesian we have a lot of words like padi, gabah, beras, and nasi, and each refers to a different stage of rice. So if we just translate rice without context, we might choose the wrong word, and this shows that languages categorize reality differently. Why lexical equivalence can be tricky. Another issue is polysemy, when one word has multiple meanings. For example, the word fresh. Fresh air means clean or cool air. Fresh water means not salty. A fresh person might mean rude. So meaning depends on context. Also, homonymy. It's a same form, completely different meaning. Can mean ability, or it can mean a metal content. And there's something called this happens when there is no exact problem in the target language. It's common with cultural words technical terms or idioms. And the book also talks about compound words. Some are transparent, like bookstore. We can easily understand and translate it. But some are opaque, like hot dog. If we translate it literally, it becomes strange. So, from the chapter, translators cannot depend only on dictionaries, but they must understand context, culture, and usage. And the last part of my chapter. Next slide, please. Okay, in chapter 7, we really emphasize that translation is about meaning. And meaning is not simple. It has layers. The book explains several types of meaning. The first is lexical meaning. So lexical is the basic dictionary meaning. And second is grammatical meaning. Meaning created by structure, tense, or affixes. Third is textual meaning. It means appears because of relationship between sentences. Fourth, contextual meaning. Meaning influenced by situation. And fifth, social cultural meaning. Is meaning shaped by culture. This is very important because sometimes a sentence may be grammatically correct but culturally inappropriate. The chapter also discusses idioms feel strange, but actually it means revealing a secret. So what should a translator do? This book suggests that we can, first, find an equivalent idiom, use a natural expression, or explain the meaning. Metaphors can also be culturally specific, so sometimes we keep the metaphor, sometimes we adapt it. And this shows the translation is not mechanical, but requires interpretation and decision making. Now, briefly, I want to reflect on these chapters. These chapters is very systematic and clear. The explanations are logical and the examples are practical. For beginner translators, this is very helpful book. And however, most of the theoretical references are classical. And the book doesn't really discuss modern issues like machine translation, AI, or global digital communication. So we have to give a strong foundation. It might not to be complement with more contemporary perspective. And I think that's all from me. The next part will be delivered by my part. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for my
friends has given
me time to
explain that
chapter 8 to 10.
For the first that
chapter 10 translation of scientific and technical text. In the screen you can see that is the point of the chapter 8.
And then
scientific and technical texts are texts that aim to convey information and knowledge in a clear and scientific manner. The primary focus of this type of text is the accuracy of meaning and systematical manners. The primary focus of this type of text in the accuracy of meaning and the precision of information, and free for information elements. The dominant language foundation is scientific and technical text. In the referential function, which emphasizes the accurate presentation of facts, concepts, and objects. One of the main characteristics of scientific and technical text is the use of the technical terminology specific and particular fields course of
The
study.
language is
The
normal.
language is normal.
The language is
The
formal,
language is formal, structured, and oriented toward clarity of information. These texts do not protest aesthetic value or expressive language. Instead, they focus on presence and clarity. Translation needs to understand the underlying concept before creating appropriate equivalence. The use of standardized and widely accepted terminology is essential to ensure professional and academic clarity. Consistency in the use of the term must be maintained to avoid ambiguity. The main object in translating scientific texts is to transfer cognitive or factual meanings accurately without unnecessary international interpretation. Okay, for the next, let's talk about chapter 9, the translation of literature. That's, as you can see, that's the point of the chapter 9. And in contrast to scientific texts, literary works possess more complex characteristic. Literary translation aim to bridge differences in time and space while presenting the meanings, narratives, and aesthetic effect of the original text. Then, literary texts contain aesthetic elements, cognitive and symbolic meanings, emotional expressions, and cultural values. And also, in literary works, meaning is not always literal. Many expressions carry implicated, metaphorical, and context-dependent meanings. As a result, literary translation requires a high level of linguistic and cultural scientificity. Then translation must not only transfer word but also convey the message, mood, and cultural background embedded in the text. And also, the several challenges arise in literary translation. Thus include metaphors and culture-bound idioms, wordplay, and sound elements such as rhythm and rhythm, especially in poetry. Differences in cultural context between the source and target languages may make it difficult to respondents the same aesthetic effect. There is no single fixed produce for translating literary text, as each work has unique stylistic and contextual features. And then the translation strategies is in literary cultural adaptation may be necessary to ensure comprehensibility. Paraphrasing is often required to preserve cognitive meanings and aesthetic impact. A communicative approach can help maintain the feel or mentional resonance of the original text. In the context, creativity and aesthetic sensitivity play crucial roles in producing a high-quality translation. And also, the synthesis of Chapter 8 and Chapter 9 compression that's the fundamental differences between scientific and scientific and literary translation lies in their focus and objectives. Scientific translation emphasizes accuracy and the precise transfer and factual information. Literary translation emphasizes creativity, aesthetic values, and the presentation of emotional and cultural nuances. In scientific texts, that cognitive or factual meanings is the primary concrete, and the language is objective. In literary texts, connective and symbolic meanings are the mountain, requiring translation to consider cultural and sentimental aspect carefully. Thus, the type of the text significantly determines the translation strategy applied. Additional section, the theoretical foundation and academic credibility. This book is supported by a comprehensive list of reference on translation theory and linguistic studies. It also includes the author's academic background, demonstrating scholarly credibility. This element strengthens the liberty of the book as an academic research source for translation studies. And then the conclusion based on chapter 8 and chapter 9, that the type of text determines the translation approach and the strategy employed. Scientific and technical translation approach uses accuracy, the terminological precision, and clarity of information. Literary translation accurate creativity, aesthetic sensitivity, and deep cultural understanding. The theoretical foundation presented in the books refers the idea that effect translation depends on the translation ability to adapt the strategy is different textual context. Well, maybe that's all our presentation from our groups. We hope that can beneficial for you all. And for the last, we give back to the MC, Ms. Abab Sarmani today, moderator today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Salma, and thank you for my friend. Um, Let me say again, thank you for Group 1 for the presentation that have been delivered. So now we will continue to the question and answer session. This Q&A session will be conducted at the end and will be open discussion. For those who would like to ask question, please raise your hand in Zoom meeting, not for real. Raise your hand and mention your name and where you from. I mean, from group, not from you are, and deliver your question briefly and clearly. So, the floor is open. Is there anyone who would like to ask question? Okay, Muhammad Alif Raihan Ramadan, you can ask your question.
Okay, thank you so much for the moderator for the opportunity given. So I'm from Group 4. My name is Muhammad Ali Khan Ramadan, and I would like to ask a question. Since idioms often require sufficient reading exposure or background knowledge to be understood, And from my experience as a beginner translator, when I recently came across some new idioms, I found it quite difficult to translate them into Indonesian accurately. So, what I want to ask is, what strategy would you recommend to handle such idioms without changing their intended meaning? Thank you very much.
Okay, Alif, thank you for your question. It's a really good question. And yep. So the next, who's have questions? Please raise your hand. In the Zoom meeting, not for real. Mention your name and where you from, and deliver your question. Who would you like to ask the question? Okay, guys. Who would like to ask the question? Well, we are waiting for others to ask question. Would anyone like to give a conclusion from our discussion?
Excuse me, can I answer the questions?
Of course. Please give your answer.
Okay, I'm going to answer the questions from Alif. So, in short, what strategy would you recommend to handle such idiom situation without changing their intended meaning? So, the first things that you have to do when you found the idiom, identify first whether it's truly an idiom or not. Before translating it literally, ask yourself, does the literal meaning make sense in any context? Or does it sound metaphorical or culturally specific? For example, kalau misalnya lihat kalimat break the ice, literal meaningnya tidak fit di segala konteks. Break the ice, pecahkan esnya. So if you identify it, it's like an idiom, then you have to stop translate it literally. And the second is understand the meaning, not the words. So if you found it idiom, you have to priority the meaning, not the structure of the sentence. Use monolingual dictionaries. If you have English dictionaries, you can use it, and you can use corpus examples, and you have to find a clue in paragraph or sentence that near the words. And ask yourself, what is the speaker trying to achieve emotionally or functionally? And third is choose the right translation strategy. I recommend 4 sub-strategies for identify the idioms. The first one is use an equivalent Indonesian idiom. Jadi gunakan idiom-idiom yang selaras. Jadi misalnya nih ada kalimat kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Kalau misalnya nggak tahu artinya, literal dulu, kemudian cari idiom yang setara yang kamu tahu di bahasa Indonesia. Misalnya sekali dayung, 2-3 pulau terlampaui. So that keeps the meaning itu stylistic dan selaras kayak gitu. And the second strategy is paraphrase the meaning. And this is the common and the most safest way to translate it. For example, hit the nail on the head. If no equivalent idiom exists, explain the meaning naturally. Kalau misalnya hit the nail on the head, berarti menggunakan kata yang selaras juga, tetapi kita menggunakan diparafrase kayak gitu. Jadi artinya tepat sekali atau mengatakan sesuatu dengan sangat tepat untuk menghindari awkwardness. And the third is keep the idiom and add the clarification for literary or creative text. Sometimes kita bisa menggunakan kalimat-kata yang kita dengar dari novels or dari quotes or stylistic translation. Misalnya Pandora's Box. Pandora's Box artinya kotak Pandora. Kalau misalnya di novel biasanya artinya adalah sumber masalah besar. And the last strategy is omit the idiom, rare last resort. If the idiom adds stylistic flavor but it's not essential, you might simplify it carefully. An idiom can be informal, humorous, sarcastic, formal, literal. For example, kick the bucket itu tuh informal atau humorous. Should not become meninggal dunia or too formal. Jadi better mati artinya karena itu depending on context. Apakah dia humorous, formal, or informal. And you can also build your idiom notebook. Jadi pada intinya you have to read a lot and familiarize your mind with English, and you have to be updated to such idioms. And since we are beginner translator, start to build a personal idiom glossary that can help you to understand such situation and categorize it by theme. For example, emotion, business conflict, success. And you can write the original idiom, the meaning, the example sentences, and also the important things is Indonesian equivalent or paraphrase words that equivalent with the English words. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amanda, for your answer. Alif, so you understand about Amanda answer, right?
Yes. Thank you so much.
Yes. Okay, you're welcome. So, guys, thank you for Ali for your question and Amanda for your answer. Now, who would like to ask a question? Please raise your hand and tell your name and what your group. Okay, Sharifah Soraya, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, moderator. So I want to ask group 1. My question is, in chapter 1 and chapter 4, it is mentioned that the main goal of translation is to achieve equivalence. If every language has different structures and cultural meanings, can we actually reach true equivalence, or is it more of an ideal goal?
Okay,
Yes?
it's your question.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Sharifah Soraya.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so that the question from Sharifah Soraya. Group 1, can moderator ask the question? I think yes.
Yes.
I have a question to you guys. So my question is simple as it. What was the biggest challenge you faced when reviewing this book? Maybe that's all my question.
Thank you for question. Permission to answer question from Sharifah Soraya. This is a very good theoretical question. It shows you are not just memorize the book, you are thinking critically. The short answer is true equivalence is an ideal goal, not something we can achieve perfectly. Now, let's break it down properly. Why true equivalence is almost impossible? As mentioned in your book, chapter 1 and 4, the goal is equivalence, but think about reality. So every language has different grammar structure, different cultural references, different emotional association, and different worldview. Example, in English, time is money, but in Indonesian translation, waktu adalah uang. Grammatical equipment, yes. Culturally identically impact, not necessarily. In Indonesian culture, the philosophical weight of time might not carry exactly the same capitalist nuance as in American culture. So, structurally similar, but not fully equivalent in meaning impact. What scholars say? In translation theory, equivalence has evolved. For example, Egunida introduced. A formal equivalence is focused on form and content, close to original structure, and dynamic equivalence is focused on equivalent effect on the reader. So neither himself understood the perfect sameness is impossible. Instead, the goal is the same response from target readers as from source readers. That already show equivalence is functional, not absolute. So, what is equivalence really? It is not uh, one 100% identical meaning, 100% identical structure, 100% identical culture value. It is the close natural equivalent meaning, the purpose intent, and that works for target readers. Your book is also emphasize accuracy, clarity, and naturalness. That combination is the practical version of equivalence. And translation is not photocopying; it is reconstruction. If language were perfectly equivalent, translators would not be needed. The moment you move from English 10 system, it, articles a and the, with Indonesian, no article system. Idioms, culturally specific, in Indonesia, culture specific metaphors. You are already adjusting. So yes, equivalence is an ideal target, not a perfect reality. So, how about the master translator mindset? A beginner mindset, I must make it exactly the same, but the professional mindset, I must make it function the same. That's a big difference. You don't just perfection, you just effectiveness. Maybe that's all.
Okay, it is enough?
Yes, enough.
Okay. How about Sharifah Soraya? Did you have something to say?
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you so much, Kiki.
Okay, thank you so much too for Sharifah Soraya for your question and Kiki Melissa for your answer. Next, it's my question. Please give me the answer.
Okay, let me answer the question from my Sarah. The question is very good. Let's talk about what was the biggest challenges you faced when reviewing the books. That's true. The biggest challenge we faced when reviewing the books was understanding and studying the wide range of the translation theories and presented throughout the chapter. The book discusses various concepts such as equivalence, meanings, cognitive and connotative translation producers, and different text types. Connecting the theoretical framework into one current understanding required careful reading and critical thinking, and also the another challenge was principles and text specific strategies. This book explains foundational theories in the earlier chapter and applies them differently in scientific and literary contexts, and also recognizing how those theories shift depending on the type of the text was interculturally demanding. In addition, the condensing the entire books into a clear and structured summary without losing important theoretical insights was not easy. It requires selecting key point while sitting mentoring academic acquire. Okay, I think that's all that the question we answer from the Maisara. Did you get it, the point?
Yes, Sama, I got it. So, thanks for sharing about your challenges for review this book. Thank you. And yep, Did you have any question, guys? Or just enough?
No.
Okay. Hold on. Okay. So this
Excuse me, Farah.
yes. Yes, Amanda.
If there is no one give the questions to us, I would like to clarify something. So
Uh-huh.
our lecturer said that we have from the presenter have to give the score for the someone who give the question. Can I give the score for the question that you all give to us?
Yes, of course.
So we decided to give all the questions an A score. I think that's all that I can say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. And yep, finally we have reached at the end of discussion. Let us close the discussion by reciting Hamdalah together. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin.
Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin.
As the moderator, I apologize if there were any mistakes. Thank you very much for your attention and cooperation. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Giliran kami.